Maybe.
Hello.
Sir? Green, green.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಸಂಜೆ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. I wholeheartedly welcome everyone to the third event of Science Sanjay series organized by Kalasurichi and Kutuhari. Today's honorable guest, Dr. Shayan Srinivasa Garani from Indian Institute of Science. He will be talking on the topic of mathematics of music, Sangeetada Ganita, along with Mohan Keshav Kumar and Sunu Seth. A little introduction about our distinguished guest. Dr. Shayan Srinivasa Garani received his PhD in Electronics and Computer Engineering from Georgia Institute of Technology, Atlanta, MS from the University of Florida, Gainesville, and PE from Mysore University. Dr. Shayan Srinivasa Garani is an associate professor at the Indian Institute of Science within the division of EECS and the director of Physical Nanomemory Signals and Information Processing Laboratory. Dr. Garani has had senior engineering positions within Broadcom Corporation, ST Microelectronics, and Western Digital. Prior to joining IISc, Dr. Garani was leading various research activities, managing and directing research and external university research programs within the Western Digital. He was the chairman for signal processing for the IDEMA ASTC and a co-chair for the overall technological committee. He is the author of a book, several journal and conference publications, holds US patents in the area of data storage. Dr. Garani is a senior member of the IEEE OSA and the past chairman for the IEEE Data Storage Technical Committee and the past chairman for the Photonic Detection Group within the Optical Society of America. He was awarded Professor Satish Dhawan Young Engineer State Award in the field of engineering sciences for the year of 2018. His research includes broad areas of applied mathematics, physical modeling, coding, and many more. Aside from his research and teaching, Dr. Shayan tends to his gardening in his free time. He's also a trained and practicing Carnatic vocalist and sometimes has jamming sessions with his students. It is no surprise, therefore, that he has worked on music theory and processing too. He has presented papers on related topics at the conferences. His lab has been exploring fundamental questions like what is music, what is a raga, should music be thought of as discrete or continuous, how can sound waves and gamakams be synthesized, such as. He hopes that his contributions will help musicians better understand and analyze music. It is my privilege to welcome Dr. Garani to Science Sanje. Welcome, sir. We also have accompanying musicians with Dr. Garani today. Mohan Keshav Kumar on violin and Sumukh Shesh on mridangam. Welcome you both. Now, today's lecture, Mathematics of Music, Sangeeta the Ganita. The lecture will go on for 45 minutes, which will be followed by 15 minutes of question and answer session. I request all the audience to please put their phones on silent for the duration of the lecture. Thank you.
Where the feedback is. I hope this is sorted out. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Yeah. So today's how many of you here can follow both English and Kannada because it's going to be a mixture of these two. ಪುರಾಣಿ ಹುಡುಗರುಗಳಿಗೆ ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಸೊ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ I will mix and match as is required. So there will be a little bit of technical stuff at the same time not technical stuff because it is an interdisciplinary topic. Okay. So this placement is not, it's a little odd for me because I'm taking this here and this one there. I find it very hard. It's a little odd. Hello? Yeah. Okay, welcome all. And thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. Mysore Nono, Puttur Mysore. So, Mandya cross I think it's a pleasure for me to come to Mysore. So, it's my place. So, it's my hometown. So, it's a pleasure to be here and welcome all. So the organizers told me 45 plus 15, but since this is music, I hope you give a little bit of freedom that if you can go a few minutes or detour a little bit, if this is pleasurable for all of you. Okay, because in the past when I have rendered these lectures, it was not a traditional lecture in science or maths, but it's an interdisciplinary topic. So therefore, I think there would be a mix of both music and math as and when we get there. Okay. So before I begin, I'd just like to give a brief snapshot of my lab and various activities. So this is from 2012 to 2022. So actually the resolution is not that much as I see here, but it's okay. So these are all my students, about 29 students that have graduated in the past. 7 PhDs, 20 plus masters, 2 BS physics students, and all of them well placed in academia, industry, India, abroad. And I have 5 PhDs, including one co-supervised, one master's, one PS, so 2 PS students. So it's a fun group that we have. So I mean, and we work in various areas: in quantum information processing, in physical data storage, AI, neural networks and stuff, and then music signal processing also. So you will see a reminiscence of AI feeding into music and some of these things that I do. So let's begin with a short video clip. So I'll basically turn off my Shruti box, and this is a short video clip that was collated by my assistant Praveen Nandakumar. And this was something which I presented at the Information Theory and Applications Workshop in San Diego way back in 2013. So I just joined IAC at that time, and I was invited in San Diego for a talk. And then I decided, okay, let me write a paper on music and symbolic dynamics, the science behind an art, and expose this uh, there than traditional topics like coding theory or information theory that I would have usually written up any material there. So, and the birth of this part of research from my group at IAC stems from all this. So I'll turn off the Shruti box and I'll play this clip for you, and then we will begin our lecture. can go on like this. So there was something which was common to all of these things, right? We started off with the Ganesh and Kumaresh's Mohanaragam, right? And then we continued on to playing the same Mohana in different ways, maybe with a little bit of morphings here and there when it came to some of the other styles of music, right? But there is something common in all this, that it's a language, right? It's a language. There is communication happening there. There is pleasing sounds, right? And then there is silence, pauses, and musicians understand this language. It doesn't matter which part of the world you come from. So when you sing Mohanam, I mean there's a resonance there that is happening, right? For example, I can just illustrate with my friend here, right, Keshav. No, I don't have to say anything. Okay, so I would have sung that, he played it for me, right? So there's a game going on here, right? I understand, he understands me, I understand him, we just see each other, there is a wink, and that's it. We know what is happening, right? So if you think in terms of communications, what is happening here, right? If you think about your cell phone, you're transmitting something, you're receiving something, there is some communication happening here. So between the two of us, also there is communications that is happening, right? I am the sender, he is the receiver, sometimes he is the sender, I am the receiver. We ping pong and we do the game, and then we have our friend here also who will innovate at a certain time. So now we would like to see what is the mathematics behind all this, right? And music is an art form, right? When people think about music, it's an art form, creativity, ಕಲೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ವಿಷಯಗಳು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಕಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಗಣಿತ ಇದೆಯಾ, ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಯೋಚನೆ ನಮಗೆ ತಲೆ ಒಳಗೆ ಬಂದಾಗ we will feel yes, there is something happening, right? If it is deterministic to some extent, that we are able to predict each other and work, there is some science and math to that, and we would like to understand what it is all about. So my training in music happens to be from my gurus, my mother, Tatsala Ayengar, my guru Nila Ram Gopal, and Shankar Shastri. All of them have taught me and teaching me various aspects of music, and therefore, with that knowledge of the art form, I'm able to express math and science in a way that this exposes this art. So let us today talk about the mathematics of music. Okay. So what are the grand challenges when you think about music, science and technology, right? First is artificial music synthesis. ಸಂಗೀತದ ಕೃತಕ ಒಂದು ಸಂಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆ, ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತಾ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು, ರೈಟ್? ಸಂಗೀತಗಾರರಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕ್ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಓಷನ್, ಇದು ಏನಪ್ಪ ಬಹಳ ಓಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಓಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಹ್ಯೂಜ್ ಓಷನ್, ಅದು ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಈಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದು ನೋ ಲಿಮಿಟ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್, ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಟಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ವೇನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಒಂದು ವಿಜ್ಞಾನಿಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಒಬ್ಬ ಗಣಿತಜ್ಞನಿಗೆ ಆ ವಿಷಯ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಇನ್ಫಿನಿಟಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಲೆಕ್ಕವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅರ್ಥವೂ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಸೋಲಾರ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ನಾಟ್ ಇನ್ಫಿನಿಟ್, ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ಫಿನಿಟಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅನ್ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನಬಲ್. ಬಟ್ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಉಂಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಫಾರ್ ಕಲಾವಿದರಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನೀವು ಓಷನ್ ಇನ್ಫಿನಿಟಿ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಆಲ್ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗ್ರೇಟ್, ಮೋಹನ ರಾಗ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, 2 ಗಂಟೆ ಕಾಲ ರಾಗಂ ತಾನಂ ಪಲ್ಲವಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ನೀವು? ಒಂದು ಕಚೇರಿ 2.5 ಗಂಟೆ ಕಾಲ ಮೋಹನ ರಾಗದಲ್ಲೇ ರಾಗಂ ತಾನಂ ಪಲ್ಲವಿ, people should not get bored. That is the interesting part because audience are the subject to that. ಅಥವಾ ಕೆಲವು ರಾಗಗಳು ತಗೊಂಡು ಅದನ್ನ ಅದರ ಪ್ರಯೋಗ ಮಾಡಿ 3 ಗಂಟೆ ಕಾಲ 4 ಗಂಟೆ ಕಾಲ ಕಚೇರಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದ ನೀವು ಅದೇ ರಾಗ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು, ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಡು ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಬೋರ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಉಂಟಾದಾಗ then you realize maybe the patterns could be repetitive after a point, right? ಒಂದು ಸಂಗೀತ ಕಚೇರಿ ಹೋದಾಗ when you go to a Carnatic concert, 2.5 hours is a lot of information packed. I'll get to the portion of the concerts and the details. So when we are building this, when we are synthesizing music and when we are reciting and playing this out, right, our receivers are the audience, right? And when the audience reciprocate, if you are able to innovate at that level and create music, audience can sit and listen, because every moment there should be some kind of interesting things that are happening. So this is talking about that. What is creativity? Could you innovate creativity? Could you quantify creativity in the musical form? And what is it? So we get to these nuances. So now our aim is a grand challenge, that is we want artificial music synthesis, both the composer and the musician centric style, towards getting towards a musical humanoid level. Imagine a humanoid that can play the music for you. Okay. So I gave you an example of music synthesizer through the illustration of Mohana Raga. We are getting towards actual near human renditions. So now there are non-linearities. Let me illustrate that non-linearity transitions. You see the transitions there. No, the notes are not just notes like that. There are non-linearities. There are transitions. The musicians understand what is happening, and the mridang is immediately recorded back. Right? So I started with this area because we do not know what we carry forward from our past, that we imbibe all this when we do these things. But there is modeling of these non-linearities is an interesting challenge. Emotions, bhava. This is an interesting aspect of music, because when we render compositions, there is context and connections to this, right? For example, I will take this illustrations from Varangashayi, Ambodu, right? So the setting of that emotion is Jagaraja is there at the Srirangam temple. The door is not open for him. There is a Vaikuntha Ekadasi there. Apparently the door is not open. So only Varangashayi, can't you hear me? Why don't you open the door for me? So I will illustrate step by step some sangatis that we will see the emotions conveyed, and I would like to see the audience. What is it that you see, right? It's very unusual for me to sit like this. Kacheri ಆದರೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಆಡ್ಬೋದು. ಇದು ಒಂಥರ it's a constraint challenge for me to you see the bhava there. So first, I start with this, not opening the door. I'm a little agitated. Then, so these are all emotions. I'm frustrated. Why don't you open the door? Okay, so it's going this in the sequence. So this is emotions. So now there is that kind of delivery of the energy from the musician to the listeners, that as you listen through, you are able to understand. Now, can a machine do this? Can you synthesize the bhavam? Can you build this emotional feel, right? So this is the kind of interest. Then there is music analysis, right? So when you have to synthesize, you should know how to analyze. I mean, when you analyze only, then you can synthesize, right? So if you do not know ಸ್ವರಾಕ್ಷರ ಸರಿಗಮ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ರಾಗ ಹಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ವರ ಪ್ರಸ್ಥಾನ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ನೆರವಲ್ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಯಾವುದು ಬರಲ್ಲ. So that is why we start with Sarade Varsai and everything else, and only then we proceed step by step. So there you have analyzed. Analysis ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ synthesis ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ. Synthesis cannot be done without analysis. So we are also interested in music separation and enhancement, and these are some of the problems which we are interested in my group, and genre morphemes and things. For example, if you think about ragas, the same Hindustani musicians can render it little more plain swarams. It's also Mysore Shaili, also sometimes not Hindustani exactly, but Mysore Shaili also has a little bit of plain notes versus Tanjavur Bani, which is lot of gamakams. Mysore also has gamakams, but compared to Hindustani is little more plain notes, you know. So and then, but still, you can morph the and then see these things. So the music is a very open field. It has links to acoustics, of course, sound production, sound reception, and all that. Then human physiology, psychology. Not all musicians are the same. So ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೂ ಅವ್ರವ್ರ ಫೋರ್ಟ್ ಕಾಪಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ there will be kind of frictions. I'm big, and so on. From a scientist, you understand, you dissect all those things and things sound the same, except it depends on your physiology, your psychology, and that kind of thing in terms of your links to brain research, essentially, right? For example, if you're singing in the slow pace, if, for example, you can stretch, with a lot of comes. It is the business. Who like a certain musician. He ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಶುದ್ಧ ತಪ್ಪು, ಅದು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಶುದ್ಧ ಸರಿ, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಮಿಸ್ಕನ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್. ಅಥವಾ ಹುಸೇನಿ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ರಾಮ ನಿನ್ನೆ ನಮ್ಮೀನ ರಾಮ ಅಂತ ರೀಗ ಸರಿ ನಾನು ರಾಮನ ಹಂಗ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಇಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಹೇಳೋದು ಅಪದ್ಧ, ಶುದ್ಧ ತಪ್ಪು. ರಾಮ ನಿಂದೆ who is right? I'm still thinking Hussaini have not deviated a bit. It is my emotion with connection to Rama. I will say Rama ninde nam meenago. ಕೇಳ ಹಿತವಾಗಿದೆಯಾ ಇದು? Okay, ಹಿತವಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು. I mean, because you are the receivers. So there is historical element, there is social and cultural aspects also to music. So it's really a science which encompasses all this. Now, what constitutes music? Okay, so this is going to be a little longer talk, so please be patient with me. ಯಾವ್ದಾರ ಅವಸರ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ I think I don't know, because I think you have to be a little bit patient with because I'm going step by step. So music, what constitutes music? Music ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? So music has melody, right? Melody illa andre music alva, it is noise. Okay, cacophony is noise. Arrangement of musical notes perceived by a listener in the foreground as one entity is basically melody, shruti. So I used to hear, or at least I heard, that in someone made this little mistake. So the MS Subbalakshmi, Carnatic musician, I heard that her two tanpuras called Lakshmi and Saraswati would be tuned, and in the green room she would be there listening to that Nagam before she started for her concerts. That is why you see that effect of MS Subbalakshmi's music. Kata kata kata, you cannot sing, so you need to kind of soak yourself into that melody, and once you are into that, then of course it comes out. Okay. Then rhythm, Shruti, Mata, Laya, Pita, right? So of course you give the aspect to the mother first, or considering the child. But of course these days we want to be gender unbiased. Okay, so rhythm, so Laya. Inaya Shruti When Koteshwar Iyer talks about in Vishnupriya, Shajan Shabariya Ganda Maya Panchamadai So Ininaya Shutiyo. So it has to be sweet. Ini in Tamil, Ininaya Shutiyo, it has to be very sweet. Diyaya Ininaya Shutiyo Diyaya. So the rhythm has to be like the gait of the elephant. Okay, so that is expected. So that is the reason, sometimes even the Dragon Vidwans and the Gatan Vidwans are quite tiras. Okay, So, rhythm. Then harmony. This refers to simultaneous use of two or more tones simultaneously that happens particularly in piano and other things. In violin, it might be difficult to hold two or tones simultaneously. Could you illustrate simultaneously?
So there is something called as chord in Western music. So we can hold two notes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so he did it because you could try this in a Western context, but in Carnatic, normally this harmony is not so much. Okay, so this is an illustration of harmony. Next. Rhythm you already heard. Okay. Dynamics, intensity, and volume of sound production. This is very important for modulation. In Bhairavi Ragam, for example, if you take Bala Gopala and Nerval, Neela, 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 Sharira, so that Neela, Neela, start with Neela. When you do the nerval prayogam, the imagination of the musician is the emerald shades of blue of Krishna there when you think about the sound production, right? So why if somebody should force you to sing nerval like that only, so it has to end it in one cycle? No. According to there again two schools of thought. Only when you are doing Ragam Tanam Pallavi, only in Pallavi renditions, your nerval has to be stuck exactly to the cycle. In regular things, you are allowed to stretch nerval according to your imagination. Okay? Some schools of thought differ. Where is this connection? So therefore, you are allowed to volume to modulate the volume and sound. Or for example, in Thodium, right? There is also Kaveri Tiramunano Pavanamano Gavuri Kaveri. Okay, Kaveri Tiramunano. Kaveri flows all the way from Talkaveri to from Chirapatna to Srirangam, right? So when you do the nerval there, thinking about that Kaveri there, Kaveri. So there, the musician's mind is thinking about the breadth of that river Kaveri there in Srirangam, which is very broad. So if you have seen that Kaveri, that imagination sort of reflects into the nerval rendition. So that is the energy that is being delivered in the whole thing. So there is that intensity and volume and durations and whatnot. Then timbre or timbre. So this refers to the quality.
Keep at touch.
I'm touching this. I also pressed the tick button. I don't know why. So there is quality of musical tone, right? For example, the same thing that comes through in the violin is not the same in possibly if you play the flute or the veena, right? So therefore there is this tone quality can be different, right? And therefore it is okay, though you have tuned to the same pitch. And then texture refers to the overall musical quality. A suite with melody, rhythm, harmony, vocal and instruments all together. Okay, that is a texture. And all of this together can give you, what music is. So, think about an information theoretic perspective. Music is a form of communication using pleasing sounds and silences, and it's as abstract as mathematics. Okay. So why silence is important? It's like a lecture which is non-stop. You want pauses in the middle. right? And you need, and the pause requires you to assimilate. You may pause there. You see the pauses there. You want to show the breaks in the middle. Now you can bring all this into the automatons. So now from the Indian context, Shruti is this kathai, as simple as that, with a fundamental tonal pitch. Sa pa sa pa sa pa sa. So you should know this. Invariant perfect pitch. So the drone or the metronome is basically that is here I have a digital instrument, sort of. The tanbura is a more continuous instrument where you can even if your voice is not exactly at D like mine today, you can adjust that string as per your voice and then you can peacefully sing that. And that is the nice part about the tanbura, and hopefully the modern people also get used to that instrument, an analog instrument. Gamakas. So these are frills, ornamented notes, and then these can be basically inflections. A good example of the many gamakams that this is part of our music. For example, Shankachakra Gada Paramavama that is the Gamakam there. That same Ga appears in Kankarnake So why you should be stereotypical, right? ಎಲ್ಲ ತೋಡಿ ಹಂಗೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತದ ಬರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಆ ಪ್ರಯೋಗ ಇಲ್ಲ ಶುದ್ಧ ತಪ್ಪು ಹಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ದೀಕ್ಷಿತರು ಮಾಡಿ ನಾನು ಕಂಕಣಕ್ಕೆ you see the Gandharam that appears there. So musicians should have an open mind to listening to people. Okay, so not just be attached, saying that this is my body, I hold it sacrosanct. As long as the receivers can receive it and it is appealing, the Gandharam Prayogam is still okay. What is the harm in making the Prayogam there? Right? Do you agree with me or not? But it is difficult sometimes to convince the older generation. Apadda Shuddha Tappu Nigaspadtare. So youngsters like us cannot say anything more to that. Okay? So you have to have an open mind to listening. So Raga is now the musical object which encompasses gamakams, pertinent musical phrases, guiding scale, etc. etc. Scale is just a guiding scale, but you have to. It is classical. Why it is classical? The ragam you hold to the scale constraints. You are not going to deviate, right? Otherwise, it is mixture, and like Kishori harmonica said, it is mixture with confusion. It's confusion. Fusion is confusion. That's a remark. Listen to her on YouTube. She will tell that fusion is confusion. Of course, classical musicians adhere to this thing, but within that we have freedom to do whatever I want. I can call Rama, I can say Rama. It doesn't matter. Okay, it is my physiology, my emotion, my bhava, how I connect to Rama. Who the heck cares? So I can do that. Okay, that is where the renditions of ragams, renditions of kritis will be slightly different from musicians to musicians depending upon their physiology. Bhava is very important because if you don't give emotions, the music is dead, you will be just singing accordingly. And the way you give bhavams is different according to your connections to music. That is why you have this as the art form. Tada. So we will come to the tada. Tadas are beats set to a count. Okay? How it is? Sari Gama Padani. One beat for this thing. Chokam is Chaturasha Shakti. Then Sari Gama Padani Sani Rapa Magadi. I heard many boys and girls sing. Now we think that it's good. Next, we will do it differently. Yes. Sari Gama Padani Sani Rapa Magadi. Sari Gama Padani Sani Rapa Magadi. Gama Padani. Okay. What happened there? Beats of 3. Systematic. P is equal to 3. Right? Radius can be 1, it can be 2, it is 3. Right? So seamlessly it happens. Right? So somehow our mind thinks in terms of 2 and 4 and 8. Thinking in terms of 3 difficult. It requires concentration, alertness, and preparation. So therefore, Tara can be beats of 3 in 3. Right? You can do all those variations. Right? This can be done in runtime, right? Okay, let us do it runtime, right? None of us know what is it. I'll try. So he started with Hamsat Bani. I'll start with okay. Like today. Okay, so there the Nadai changed to P is equal to 3 and our friends just followed it without any trouble. Okay, so this is where columns can also, it can be PID, so P3, P5, you can do 7 if you're really virtuous, it is hard. Do you want to try 7 bits? Yeah. You can try it out. It will be hard for me in my voice. Huh?
8 bits also is not.
Sure. So while you can try, if you open, it will be it's difficult to get that. So you can start. So this illustration, how it can be created. Now, typical concept, we're not going to make this a concept here because we can do it separately sometime later. Okay, at least. So this is a lecture for science and math, so not the concept. That's a different thing. So typical Carnatic concept, pattern laid by Vidwan Adikudi Ramanjanga. So the way it is set up is Varnam or Kriti of your favorite deity, right? Then assorted Kritis from various composers, ragams and talams, etc., to give the variations. Then ragam, Kriti, nerval, swaram rendering. There will be Tani Avaranam at some point of time, right? Tani means independent, because you have to give some room for the presentist to expose his talent. So therefore, you stop there and let him, because so far is accompanied. Tanya Avartana means let him. Tani means Tanya part of the Tanya. Vashikesha means let him independently do it. That is what it means in Tamil. Then Ragam Karam Pallavi, rarely it is seen. Maybe people are hitting it, the youngsters are hitting it. So this has to be rendered in the due in due respect. Then lighter melodies and Mangalam. So why did Ramanjayanga did it this way of doing it? Is there a science behind all this? Varnam and renditions, if your voice is not opening up, lot of times it may not. So therefore, singing all these Varnams and longer compositions or even a Pancharathi Kritis will basically open up your throat. That is the reason why it is this. But only you should sing Varnams, not required. You can MLV with great voice. She would start with she would start like that, right? And render this thing. Or MS Subrashmi. Should start with that as opening. There is no restriction. Or if you want, you can sing Shri Sometime when I have long time, maybe I will open up my concert with this whenever we get a chance. Okay, so this is it's a beautiful rendition. And the beauty about this Chaturdashraga Malika is the 14 ragams. Shri Isha Lakshmi Gauri Sham Sati Gati Sati Ma Tani Sada Pamarari So you have interspurts of swarams and this thing. Why you should sing yeah, like, you can open up with this also. Okay, and styles can also be different. Yeah, you can you can also take prints and you can do that. There is no one particular rule why you have to open up in one particular way versus the other. So once, so there's a lot of manodharma or improvisation during the process of this musical this concept. So now, how do we basically model this, quantify this, and how do we get Kalpita Sangeeta, right? So this work on machine-based music, people have thought about. Turing was the one who basically proposed. He's the person who today's computers are are because of Alan Turing. Alan Turing. So early connections, to automating music was also thought about by Turing. There were others like Mayer, Max Matthews, research others, Davies, etc. Trying to analyze various musical instruments and having pre-recorded music and then being able to play things. So right now we have many research groups which are actively working on music. Instead of thinking about speech processing, audio processing, etc. So people are beginning to realize that you could do research in music. It's a fertile ground to do research because I told you it's an interdisciplinary field. And now, we have neural networks and engines which can synthesize music for us. We have also adopted some of these in the synthesis of music. So there are many groups, right? In India, from like Chennai, Mumbai, and outside from Stanford, from Spain, there are group, then Hofreiter and Schubert group, etc. And also Anton and others in global ranges that are synthesized music. So now it's not something that if in the Olympics that robo can throw the basketball. Have you people seen this? Throwing of the basketball into the thing. So if that could happen, could you not synthesize music possibly with all these? Yeah, the answer is yes. So I'm not getting into all these details. The table is long. So, but you should imagine that from Shadjam to the Kaki and Nishada, you have a lot of other tones out there, right? Different variations of Rishabha, different variations of Gandhara, Madhyama is only two. Sari Gama Padani Sa, Sari Gama Padani Sa. Just feel that Ma change, you have Shankara Bharanam or you have Kalyani, right? And you can have various ragas because of the combinations and permutations that you have. And there are some rules that allow these permutations and combinations. And if you look through Bhagyalakshmi's book, she also talks about harmonizability frequencies, which the masters have set this up, and then Indian musicology ranking for these swaras, sapta swaras. And one can think, why can't, it's a frequencies, right? I can have anything between one side of the spectrum to the other side of the spectrum. But what is pleasing to us is what we have adopted Jesus as the swara. So swara is different from a tone, right? In a physics experiment, you just take the tuning fork and you get one frequency there. Here it is not. There are overtones. That's the reason if you play the violins, you see that there are overtones. The quality is different. If I play the re with the flute, it's not very different. Okay. So this is equivalent to Dora Mi Fa Sol La Ti in the Western equivalent. Okay. Now in Carnatic, I will focus a lot on Carnatic music. Okay. So we have the Shruti, this is Kattai, this is to the Tambura, the metronome, analog in nature, and then one octave. Sari ga ma pa da ni sari ga ma pa. You can hold that panchmam there. Pa ma re sa ni da pa ma re sa ni da. So that is why for vocalists, before the concert, you don't load yourself a lot. You don't. This is a trick. Building is, of course, they get tired. They can have a little bit of stomach. Right, or the Latin player can even open up the shirt and then they can put the pot on their stomach, on their belly peacefully. But vocalists, if you come with a loaded stomach, it is not possible. Because your music has to come from Navi, from your navel point, right? Otherwise, you will be singing only here. So from base Panchamam to male Panchamam, right? 2 octaves one should be able to render peacefully. So therefore, no food before the concert. Afterwards, you can do whatever you want. Then I come to some superstitions also. So South Indian music, now some tones are forbidden. For example, Ritu and Davan, which is Steve. Rishabha and Shuddha Gandhara, they are not paired. Similarly, D3, G2, D2 N1. D2 is basically just Steve. Daivada and then Shuddha Nishada, they are not paired. And they said F1 and F2, these pairs of constraints are not allowed. Why? Because they are allotted the same ranking as per perceptual closeness to hearing. Second, when you put these tones together, for example, they're very discordant to hear. And that's the reason why this set is forbidden. Outside of this set, please make your permutations and combinations, and if you do the mathematics, you will get 3 square times 2 cube. Combinations are possible, and therefore you get 72 megahertz. Okay. Now, music scale, when we talk about scales, it's very important. A scale is a constrained sequence of notes or musical tones for ascending and descending octaves such that any two element subset of sequences doesn't fall within this forbidden set. That means you don't want these forbidden notes to be placed. So scales can be symmetric, asymmetric. For example, Maya Madhava Sari Gama Padani Sa Sani Rama Magari Sa. No worries, go symmetric up and down. Purvi Kalyan. Sari Gama Padava Sa Sani Rama Magari Sa. Padava Sa. That's how it is. You don't sing Padanisa is not there, definitely not. Padasa also you will not sing, but Padasa then it sort of reminds of Gamanasham, kind of it brings in those phrases. Pada Pamagare, Pada Pasa, Pada Pada has to come that way only. Now, if you think about a musician rendering, you should remember 2 notes before what you did. Gari Gama Gari Gama Pada 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 2 notes with Pada Pasa. You can't sing Pada Sa, you cannot because I did the Pada phrase there. Pada Pasa. Only then you can go. So two notes before you have to remember what it is. So this is the second order memory. Okay? And there is what I mean the second order, because I should remember in my head, I should be conscious about two notes before. Simply I cannot render however way I want. ಅವಾಗ ಶುದ್ಧ ತಪ್ಪು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಅಪದ್ವಾಗಿದೆ ಶುದ್ಧ ತಪ್ಪು ಪೂರ್ವಿ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣಿ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ರಾಗಾನೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ತಪ್ಪು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. Otherwise, when it comes to Baba, welcome. It is up to you. Okay? And why we are so pertinent about classical? Because this is the rule, right? If you're saying in Kannada, I mean, this is another rule violation. For example, I tell you, the boards in the if you see coming from Bangalore to Mysore, they say Kannada clear or the Shatti Halli and the Kannada. Aita. If you see the Hindi version, it says Shatti Halli, Lakara. Shuddhava Tappu, I think somebody should inform me this thing. The La symbol is there in Sanskrit that has to be incorporated. The infinity symbol, that li, that is the accent that you have to give, right? And similarly in English also there is, right? Because the person who sees and hears the lyrical context, kallu sakare kolliro nivel kallu sakare kolliro. The person who does not know Kannada, he is my he is nice sounding. Person who knows Kannada, right? Out of context. Again, Mandamati Janu Koto Chandana Viditi Mandamati Janu Koto. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಶ್ರುತಿ ಸರಿಗಿದೆ, ಲಯ ನುಡಿಸಿದ್ರು ನೀಟಾಗಿ. ಮಂದಮತಿಯನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಚಂದನಾನವ ಬಿಡಿಸಿ off, completely off. That's all. So one has to be very careful about this. So all this is part of context. Next, scales also need not be ordered. Our music is broader, accommodated. So there are it cannot be spanning more than one octave. For example, in Chittaranjani, that after knee you don't cross because there's karhara padiya otherwise. Nadarumanisham Shankaram Nadarumanisham Shankaram You can go on like this, okay? So concept we can try. So here you can't go outside. So within that space itself you have to render your creativity. So this is all part of it. So this made us basically can be symmetric scales, like that is what it is there. You have all these ragas. So there's a nice, interesting connection to Medakatha ragas and their ordering, the numbering. It is called the Katapayati Sutra, and it is called, these are hash functions. So our Purvikas have thought about coded system. So number 1, number 2, number 3. According to the Katapayati Sutra, you have the labels. Kanakangi, Ratlangi. According to the Ragam names, have the associated number. Okay. So we just illustrate two of these. Understand Samvadi and Vivagi ragas. You want whichever ragam in the set, first set you want to say. So there are totally 6 into 12. 12 chakras. Each chakra has 6 ragas, and within each raga, as you see, there are only one note or two notes that differ. So like that you can kind of go on with Utnami, Dharamurti and all that. So if you see that right between two adjacent ragas, so for example between Kanakangi and Ratnangi, the Nishadam is going to be varying there. Right? And similarly between Ratnangi and Dharamurti, again, Nishadam variation, sometimes one or sometimes two. And as you go across the chakra, there will be two notes that may differ. So like this is like a gray chord. Engineers think about gray chords where two symbols, they should not differ because it gives you good you have better probability of error when you're transmitting beats and things like this, right, in the context of engineering, communications. But music people have also thought about it, right? And in these ragas, there are Samvadi ragas and Vivadi ragas. Vivadis are about 40, Samvadis are about 32 remaining. So, why the Vivadis? Because they're disconsonant somehow. And this research is, I think, something needs to be done really systematically to tell why, what is the effect on the human mind and our and your physiology and psychology. But it requires a different kind of research altogether. Some of these are nice to hear, like Shankar Sari, Gamma, Padari, Sari, Rapa, Ma, Sari, Rapa, Magari, Kalyani, Sari, Rapa, Magari, so you can do all that. I take Vivadi. Feeling is like something is evoking in your feeling in your heart. Emotions are kind of different. So I mean that one has to study the brain physiology because we think about the brain chemicals and chemical exchange process that happens and what sort of vibrations that convey and because of that what hormones are released, what is your mental state? I mean, that kind of research has to be done for Vivadis. But people say that Vivadi ragams don't sing because it is if you sing that it is not good or something like that or superstitious way. But you can insert Vivadi ragams for 50 minutes. Okay? It is like you should break that superstition because when you're thinking somebody, right, it's like Hagalkai Goju or Herdakai Goju, right? You can't have it as your main course. ಬಟ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬಿಸಿಯನ್ನ ಜೊತೆ ತುಪ್ಪ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಹಾಗಲಕಾಯಿ ಇದು ಹೇರಳಕಾಯಿ ಗೊಜ್ಜಿನ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಮೊಸರನ್ನ ಜೊತೆ ಹೇರಳಕಾಯಿ ಗೊಜ್ಜು ನೆಂಚ್ಕೊಂಡು ತಿಂದ್ರೆ ಸೂಪರ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಗಿವ್ ದಟ್ ಇಂಗ್ರೀಡಿಯಂಟ್ ಲಿಕ್ವಿಡ್ ಸೊ ಅಲೌ ಇಟ್ to render the Vivagi ragams like this. Then very beautiful compositions. One need not kind of stop this. So I just want to illustrate. Rame Bharata Palita Rajamartaya Bharata Palita Rajamartaya Rajamartaya One certain here. Rajadhiraja Sammuta Charanu Namami. So at that time, the lyrics has to be subtle about Namami. Because when I'm saying Namami, he just hammers, resonating that, then kills that effect. Little bit of gentle pause. Rajadhiraja Pudita Rajadhiraja Pudita Charanu Namami, you should know. At that point, you should just stop a little bit. So this is all very important, particularly in sheet rock. Now, let us come to our. So all this is the art form. Now, if you have to synthesize music, how can we construct an automaton? Right. So we know that emissions of tones can be of variable duration. Right. You can have sa re ga ma sa re ga ma in 2 beats per two swaraksharas per beat, 4 swaraksharas per beat, 3 swaraksharas per beat. We can do all this, and then we can move from one note, one swara to the other note. re ga ma re ga ma pa re ga ma la re ma la re. You can do all these prayogams. So now what we did is understanding the rules. We basically formulated this in terms of graphs and constructed an automaton saying that if one swara can be placed, spliced with another swara, that is, you can go from one swara to other swara, then there is a connection, there's an edge going from one swara to the other swara, and similarly that can happen in the same duration or it can happen in a different duration where it's higher speeds and so on and so forth. So that can basically, the whole process can basically lead you towards rendering these ragams. So this was our representation of our synthesizer, which had these layers. So now re ga ma pa pa da pa ma re ga ma pa da pa ma ma. You can re ga ma pa re ga ma pa da pa ma pa da pa da ni da ma pa da pa ma pa da ma. It's allowed. But as long as it is aesthetically sounding well, that you can bring in these things. So now incorporating all this, we were able to come up with a layered graph construction, which basically is a mathematical object. If you know Markov chains theory, this is how you would start with, and therefore you can now comment about these construction of ragas to interesting theory of Markov chains, which is tuned to our South Indian music, right? So now music conveys information. There is correlated randomness in music. It is just not haphazard because there are correlations. And how much information can be conveyed? This is what we are interested in. And you can also adjust the sound pressure levels according to psychoacoustics, and you can moderate the volume and intensities as and when you require, and that is what we did. And one of the interesting things about the construction of our automaton is these arithmetic progressions in music. So ni da ma ma ni da ma ma da ma ma da re. You can da ni da ni da ni da ni da ba ni da ni da ba sa ni da ba ma sa ni da ba. I didn't have to do anything. I just gave the first two sequences and then boom, all this was taken care of. So you do it in these emissions. That's why we have all these dot over six and all these are all progressions. So you need these progressions. You pause here. Okay, we'll stop here. It will go on because it's a machine. Here. Okay, so that was the automaton. So that it is full screen mode. It's not a touch screen, right? Function here, function 5.
Slightly double click करें.
Slide I double click, it works.
There at the bottom, left side.
Where do I slideshow
slideshow.
on this from the current slide? Okay. All right. So now we have a music automaton. So we have understood what are the constraints of the ragam. So now we can bringing all these these swaras and their associated gamakams. We can formulate layered graphs based on Markov chains, and you can basically synthesize the emission of notes at variable durations, and you can have a machine that can play the music for you, doesn't get tired. Okay, so it can go on, and this is basically machine synthesizing music. This is Shankarabaranam. Okay, and we also have a parser, which basically tells what swaras the automaton emitted. So single underline means, no underline means it is one swara per beat. Underline means two aksharas. Double underline means four aksharas, and we also have everything is automated. It tells you what, so it can produce all these things. So I don't want to discuss the details. So this layered graph construction is irreducible, is a periodic structure. It is a positive recurrent Markov chain. So using this, there is a unit stationary, steady state probability distribution irrespective of the initial states, and therefore you can emit notes. So, and silence is integral part of this state. So this Markov chains theory nicely fits Carnatic music, and there is a connection between math and music, right? It's a statistical process. So what musicians will say, this is an ocean. We will exactly quantify what that ocean is in terms of the amount of randomness in the sequence, and which we call it as entropy. Okay, so this is from my published papers. I will share it with you. Published in Journal of Music and Mathematics, and it was published in 2013, first in the conference in San Diego that I presented this work. So this basically tells and quantifies what is the entropy of a musical scale. So if I sing Shankarabharanam, I can render for more time than possibly I can do Mohanam, right? Can you tell? So one of you could just turn this on. So if I say sa pa pa sa pa pa pa, okay, how long can you hear? Stop it immediately after a few seconds, right? Then sa re ga ga re sa re ga ga sa re sa, okay, sa re ga pa pa ga re pa pa ga re ga ga re. Okay, fine, I can listen. Sa re ga pa da sa da pa ga re sa. Okay, fine. And if you stretch it a little bit octaves, I can hear, but 3 hours ragam rendition of Mohanam, I think you'll get bored. Okay, so but if I say Shankarabharanam, uh, sari gama pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga re. I can do all these gimmicks and everything going up and down. Then I can also Varjam for re gama da ni ma ga re. Can you do the Varjams for us without Shetcham and Panchma? Vale. So why should any musician stop? Let us give an applause. ಇದು ಕಿವಿಗೆ ಹಿತವಾಗಿಲ್ವಾ ಇದು ಶಂಕರಾಭರಣ ಹಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. So I can do Varjaswarams, I can remove the Shadjam and Panchamam just with the notes Riga, Mada, Ni. I can do my combinations. ಇಲ್ಲ ಶುದ್ಧ ಅಪದ ಶಂಕರಾಭರಣನ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟ್ರೇಸ ಹೊಟ್ಟೋಗಿ ಬಿಡ್ತು ಹಂಗೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ. Sorry sir. No, with due respect to your age and your experience, I will have to basically agree to disagree with you. So, okay, perfectly right. From Shankarabharanam, he gave a trace of removing Shadjam and Panchamam, showed what could be done. Similarly, there are Brahvedams that you could do. I'll get to that a little bit. So, someone has to alert me on the time. In case I'm stretching too longer and you're bored, I can just make it. So, there's still a lot. I think I've hardly covered 15-20 minutes of my slides. I told you, right? You have to be wary about this. So this is the music, but anyway, and maybe that's it. So anyway, so this is basically you can compute this entropy. So entropy, I think in a nutshell, it gives you per unit of time, how many bits of information can you provide? Okay, right? This is a measure of entropy. It's a measure of randomness in the sequence. Suppose this was actually this theory of information theory was proposed by Claude Shannon, a mathematical engineer, a brilliant mind, and he told, let us say, every afternoon you pick up your phone, you call your friend, ಹೇಗಿದ್ಯಾ ಊಟ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಊಟ ಆಯ್ತು, keep the receiver down. Again next day afternoon 2 o'clock, ಊಟ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿದ್ಯಾ ಊಟ ಆಯ್ತು ಆರಾಮಾಗಿದೆ. Fine. But suddenly you tell something, hey, ನೀರೆಲ್ಲ ಫ್ಲಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೀನೆಲ್ಲ ಮೊದಲು ಸ್ಟಕ್ ಆಗ್ತೀಯ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, this information. I have to worry if I keep the receiver down. Oh, today my friend again he'll ask me that the same thing, Uta Aita, and then it's going to. But if you take the information that, hey, where are you? There's flooding happening. Then you have to be worried about it. So information is uncertainty. Musicians also play with uncertainty. Okay, and you can quantify this uncertainty in terms of what is the bits per unit time, and then you can quantify this entropy. So therefore, if you have more states in the ragam, more the entropy, that is, and then there are correlations across with this randomness, you can render that ragams more and people can listen to it. Otherwise, this is sa pa pa sa pa sa. Okay. So this is the idea, and you can quantify. For example, Mohana had 11 states, assuming from Panchamam to Panchamam, whereas Kalyani had more states. It had like 15 states more. So 15 states in total, more states than Mohana. So therefore, Kalyani you can listen on per unit time. It is 3.63 notes, 660 bits per unit time versus Mohanam 3.42. Okay, and if you did sa pa sa, that's it. So, so so this is very, very important, and you can do much more. And since in our musical concerts, there is not only vocal, but there's violin, then there's mridangam, upapakavadam if you have ghatam, and so on and so forth, right? And then the lyrics, renditions, all that is information to you as you're listening. You will imbibe everything together in one context, and that is why it's rich. Okay, than just rendering the zeros and ones like this. So this is very, very important, and what our intuition tells us makes intuitive sense mathematically. So somebody, if a musician tells, yeah, it is an ocean, beware, there is an entropy measure to the randomness, and maybe with very small probability one could render MS Subbulakshmi's rendition, possibly by the emissions of these notes from this class. Okay, but the probability is rare, but you could basically tune this. So we have also distance measures that you can say what is the distance between ragas, kalyani, and chandragaram, etc., etc. And depending upon your nyasas and stuff like that, which note you spend more duration, etc., which is dominating and all that. So it has roots to KL divergence and this. So this is very useful to basically even tell about distance between ragas. What is like the distance between Saraswati Puram and Tongu Nagar, right? Maybe the heart of Saraswati Puram, heart of Saraswati, Puram and heart of Tongu Nagar. You can compute distances between ragas. And yeah, as I told you, there are many rhythmic patterns, etc., that you can try, and many things to try. You want to try a little bit of different rhythm, huh? So let me see. I take it some impromptu thing. उमापते श्रीपते वाणीपते नमस्ते नमस्ते उमापते श्रीपते वाणीपते नमस्ते नमस्ते. Right? So there is Nada Vedam happening there. Your mind has to switch gears, and that happens in RTP concerts. And there are also Meda Tadas. etc. Like Meda Ragas, etc. Meda Raga Kada Swaragana Meda Raga Kada Swaragana Modi Vadi Kidavani So, an example of a Pallavi. The Ragam is Kirwani, Tadam is also Kirwani. Okay. So, so they followed it. So, like this, you can have various Tadas, 175 elementary Tadas, various Nadai, and all that. So, when you do a Ragam Tanam Pallavi, it's good. You can solve your So now we have rhythm synchronization also. So I'll play this for you. Let's turn it off. It doesn't. So where is the directory there? I think I can just actually go to that and play this audio clips. Rhythm automated. Okay. Just have a word this. So sumo plays on the thing is here. This is the thing is this. That's the machine. The swaram is also the machine. The rhythm is also the machine. So tomorrow's machines can actually perform concerts for you. So of course we have to get to that. So why this is not working for some reason. So I'll just say from this slide. So just basically, so now at least you got a feeling that one could create automatons. It can play music for you. So if there is a science behind the art, there is mathematics behind the art. It is not. It is creativity, and there is some creativity that the machine can do, and this is basically playing with uncertainty, essentially, random sequences. So we also have gamakams that we could model, and if you think gamakams how they are, so they can gam So it's beautiful to hear, right? Like lullaby, right? It never stays the mind, guys. When you think about the Madhyamam, Sudhamadhyamam, Nilambari. Sari ga ga ma ga ma. So this is how you visualize the waveform of the Madhyamam when you sing Nilambari Ragam. So it is not at ga, not at ma ga ma. It oscillates. Okay? And we were able to get the signature of how the Gamakam is. We are also able to get the synthesis of that. Let me see this. Hopefully, I can. So, this is what Bhairavi. You see that very around the Gandhara. So of course it's very small snippet. This is an isolated gamakam, but when you put this in the context, you can hear the feeling of what the gamakam is because it has to come in a context. So we did all this gamakams we have now atoms. Now, like the swarams, we can synthesize gamakams for you. So if you know your tonal pitch, etc., through transformations and things, we can synthesize the gamakams, and that is also available to us. Okay, now is the magic, right? Take the gamakams, the synthesize, these are states of our Markov chain, we splice all these swarams, and now the dancing of the swarams happen for us across all the layers, and then you can synthesize music. Of course, this is a little based on discrete time Markov chains, and we have to think about how this could be done in the continuous context. So I'll illustrate a little bit of Grahabedam, and then maybe you want to try this out? Yeah. Want to hear Grahabedam, what it is? So I will get there, and then we'll get to the. So I'll get to the neural network based stuff a little later. Okay. Sari ga pa ga sa sa ga pa ga re sa. Fine, Mohan. Sari ga pa ga sa sa ga pa ga re sa. Re ga pa ga sa re sa ga pa ga re. Sa re ma pa ni sa sa re pa ma re sa. So, but what happened is the graha of Rishabha is the Shadja. So, can you do this in the Todi? Todi. Why is it apadam? So you're a different graham. You're showing all the traces of Mohanam, and then again taking the Mohanam as that graham, you can go to Madhimavati and all the things, but you should be careful and alert in your head to come back to that graham where you are at Mohanam, and then come to Todi and then rest. If you don't, you will be Adogram. It's like a rocket launched without, a satellite launched orbiting somewhere, out of the orbit. So you have to come back to that. So that's the key thing, that your presence of mind should be very sharp to latch on to that graha. So all this is part of our music. Why we should say we should be restricted to sing only for 3 minutes or 4 minutes a certain ragam, and machines also can do this for us. Okay? So I think I'll just quickly go. We also have neural networks that we used to synthesize Western genre. I'll just play the notes for you. So let's hope this you will hear this. You can hear it on my laptop. I don't know what is the issue here. Let's see if this cannot run. Okay. So unfortunately I do not know what is the interface issue here. I can't. It's like okay, it doesn't play. Let us get it synthesized. this thing, right? It's also hung. So we use neural networks using LSTMs that it plays on my laptop. I can, those of you who are more interested, I can plug in my laptop. I don't want to increase the transfer of files here is. So please excuse me. So we have neural networks synthesize music. So it basically plays the music for you. So if you have learned the sequences, it can play for you. So how do I? Why does it not go enter?
Path is different.
Huh?
The music path.
No, it is there in that it is embedded in mine. It plays. I do not know what is the problem.
Here the path.
Oh, maybe path issues while copying. I do not know. That may be the issue. Why it is cut? I can't go next, is it? So basically, there are a lot of groups that are working on this. So I will basically sort of summarize rather quickly. So as you might have seen through this illustration, with music, with math and whatnot, music theory and mathematics are interconnected. There is science to an art. Information is additive. The thicker the music texture, more the information. That means if you have vocal instruments and everything else, you get that, it is more information that you get. And lyrics can add semantic meanings, and this can give you more entropy, right? For example, I illustrated Orangashai, right? The various phases have to be imagined, right? And also this is very important. And then in the rendition of the swarams, let's just right? So why you should only end with Madhyamam? So when so you see aspect musicians, they do that. Machine can also do that. You have to instruct the machine how to learn those patterns. The mother Kaveri, that's the meaning there. Sari sari dari dari dava pani ri sari da pada kaveri sakaveri. So that sa there, sa is for salinam in Sanskrit. Salinam is also vari jalam, right? It's also, it means water. So my imagination, sari da pada sakaveri salilam kaveri. Okay, if you think you are a maestro and say Shadja was Shuddha Apadam, you can't sing. That is ending at Panchamam. So Manale end ಆಗಬೇಕು, ದಾನಲೆ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ಷಡ್ಜಲ್ ಹಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸಪಾಸ ಹಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲ. ಸಪಾಸ ಆ ತೋಡಿನ ಪಾ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಪದನಿ ರಪ್ಪ ಪದನಿ ರಪ್ಪೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ ಸ ಸಕ ಸಕ ಸಪ ಸಕ ವೇರಿ. That's the prayer there. Or Makaveri, Kaveri. You can do all these as long as it is interesting to hear. You are not making too drastic changes in the notes, which brings in apadam. So don't go with set patterns. You can experiment. Okay. So as long as there is a science and you know how it gels, how this thing you can do all this. So therefore, and also musical sequences, as I told, underlying math, and so that you can enhance your creativity through the expression of the art form. And with all the tools, I think it will definitely help some of our impatient kids. Even I would be very impatient to be sitting in a concert like this. Sorry, in a lecture like this, because you're not talking in English. I'm talking about entropy. Come on, you realize what I'm telling you if you are an engineer or a scientist. 20 years later, 25 years later, and then you were there for this talk. Okay, so what I want to say is, I think they have to open their minds up towards listening and assimilating all things and not be really closed. So I think I'll end this with that. Unfortunately, I couldn't play the Western genres. I think I had an interesting neural nets that had constructed Western music for us. So therefore, I think we are on this thing. And real challenge is, let us say, if I heard a lot of MS Subbulakshmi's clips, and I've not heard MS Subbulakshmi sing a certain composition, I don't have the recording at all. Can I bring it live? Can I bring it live if a machine can render exactly MS voice and try to do a little bit of mimicry, for example. So when she sings, in the Karipuranath Samrakshana Tatvaram Karirajavara. You just observe it as Karipuranath Sam. That you see, it is very typical to MS. Rakshana Tatvaram Sarasi Sarasi Ruhanano Chakravi Prajitam Sarasi Ruhanano. That's how she goes when she renders, right? Understanding her style of renditions, though she is Seven Gudi Srinivasa Iyer's disciples, you can see the stark difference between Seven Gudi Srinivasa Iyer and MS Subbulakshmi. It's just physiology. We are all different. Though I have we are derived from our parents or grandparents, what we are individualistic. We have our style which is distinct. And if if the machine is able to understand, comprehend, maybe in a few years we can maybe let MS Subbulakshmi, the machine, play it and let us see. It could be R.K. Sriram Kumar there and T.K. Murthy here playing, playing for this, right? So with this I end this talk. So it was a pleasure to be here, and I welcome any questions. So I could end on time, so please excuse me for this. But if I had sped up, I think I could do this for if I were doing it as a quantum talk or something else to a mature audience. For a public, I think I want you to assimilate and sink in. It's like a 20-minute lunch or 25-minute lunch versus a 1 hour lunch peacefully with dessert and bida, then they can kind of relax and get back to your class. Happy to take questions.
Have you worked in NLP?
That's a good question. Natural language processing. That's I have not been in the area of NLP, but we are trying to bring in NLP ideas to music, and that is very important because we are looking at attention-based models of late, and we have synthesizers for music because there is a certain context to that, right? For example, like gamakams, because now what happens is the machine has a long memory. It can think the forums emitted over a previous X units of time behind, and it can play the act, gamakam, etc. for you, right? And that causes uncertainty there. So we have also attention-based models. We have text synthesize, like we have in our lab machines which can produce text that is intelligible. Okay, so like that, now we are trying to incorporate it to music, that the machine can produce music after listening for a while, which is we're improvising on this. But of course, we have to bring in a lot of these. See, the human rendition versus machine, you have all these frills. That bhavam, all this has to come through the machine. So for which we have to understand those waveforms, those curves and frills. Even musicians also will tell, curves kodi, need barbeko, sign the need the barbeko. They will tell you, but they talk it from imagination, their perspective. It is exactly math here. You're exactly seeing the curves and contours. That is the contour of the ornamentation. And when you bring all that richness, yes, indeed you can. And then what happens when with machine-based music is when you join, right? You can see that discontinuity a little bit. You see that discontinuity. Between and when you join them, when you make them more continuous, right? And the beating is not difficult, that requires continuous chains, Markov chain 3. It's a little bit of more sophisticated math. And when we build all that kind of thing, hopefully in a few years, you will see. That's where we are trying to get towards near human rendition. That when we give you a clip, you should not be able to tell this is human or because that mridangist was a was a machine. So when I gave this to the All India Radio, and when I, because I had to get subjective tests for my paper, so basically this is, and then this was given to the station director, who said it was given to musicians to basically rate on a scale, and then I had to take these tests and incorporate that within the paper. So, and then they had to grade, is this, you think this is, they had to rate, how it was close to human rendition, etc. So, and we are getting there. So, when you now splice these and make it more continuous, then you can create such a kind of music. And to make it more musician centric, you have to capture the acoustics. So each human voice, tonal quality is very different. So hopefully with this I have opened up the door for you to thinking and removing all the superstitions. So we also sang Jodi Swarupini today, right? We tried Vame Bharata, we started Karanakangi. They said, no, if you sing this, I will get into terrible depression. we are people which, but if you sing that for half an hour, it gives you some kind of atangam, right? You'll feel a little suspense mood you will get, and it will be difficult. Or if I sing Sri Satyanarayanam for a long time, you will feel a little sad. Okay for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but it will go on for hours.
I'm told that wavelength theory has some role in it.
Wavelength theory.
Can you throw some light?
I will show the light. In fact, I had illustrations with wavelets there. So now, so wavelets, basically now, this is basically where this time frequency is uncertainty. So now, think about this Fourier transformation that places equal emphasis in 2 pi upon n frequency domain. You have the same frequency resolution. But with wavelets, what I can do, I can localize I take a signal, I localize the signal in time, and then I can do a decomposition. So when I do a decomposition of the signal, right, then into different bands, the frequency bands, and these frequency bands need not have uniform frequency resolution. So depending upon the energy content in the frequency bands, I can keep those that are relevant and I can discard some of these. And now I can kind of represent the signals with the waveform of Sampita or Spurita or all these Ramakams that I have. I can kind of express it in a mathematical precise form. What is the signal representation in terms of a chosen wavelet basis? So now the coefficients are the ones which is going to give you that signature of that signal, right, in a compact way. Then if I don't want to record the whole waveform, because runtime, if I have the coefficients, I know the pitch and I do additive synthesis, I can reconstruct that Kampita or Lina or Andorita, Plavita, etc. on the fly. I can do it, and I can have these as my states. And now with the grammar information, I can give my automated.
Can you put this into entropy?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. For example, the Gandharam in Odi, all these three shades of Gandharam can be there in the Automaton, and depending upon how you have learned and what is right and relevant to the context, you can put those Namakams that gives you more entropy.
These coefficients are coming to picture.
Coefficients, so from the coefficients you have to generate that tone, right? That the swara, not the tone, the swara, right? So from the coefficients you can generate the swara. That is the reconstruction problem. So once you reconstruct it, so now you have all these signatures. So and then this and then as I told you in Namakams, you can stretch, you can compress, right? It's the same waveform. You can stretch, you can compress. It like just the waveform is stretch f of 2t or f of t by 2 or f of 4t, f of t by 4. I can stretch it. So depending on the, but when I know exactly what the coefficients are for the base f of t, I can generate the rest under translations and dilations and things. So therefore, I have a good representation of the signal, and with this representation, I can reconstruct and I can synthesize those ornaments. And once I have the ornaments synthesized, I can put them into my automaton, and based upon my learning through a neural network, etc., I can now get my automaton to work to producing sequences. So I hope I'm clarified. So because Fourier basis will require a lot of coefficients to store, and you don't need to do that because you can compactly do using the wavelet basis. So for the little friends here, I know wavelet is like imagine a big wave is a part of a wave. That's why it's a wavelet. Yeah.
Last question. Probably we will close this and probably.
I'm okay with taking questions because it's using questions. Yeah.
And thank you so much for spending time with us. So, as you through mathematical way that you showed that how this mathematical can be take place of human physical, instrument. So, do you really believe that this through mathematical formulas and all, if the software will be able to do the deliver the emotions that we can
Absolutely yes. Why not? Sunny Rama Kaveri Ma. That ma has a curvature, right? So if I associate that curvature, is subtle, I have to associate now to this madhyamam what is the label of emotion, right? That is a subtle, evocative kind of feeling. So if I want to say in the automaton, now when you go to the state, when you have sorry, but there is no emotion there. Sorry, after you emit the, go to that madhyamam with the emotion of submissiveness. Then you will say that will go under, it will go to that field. So the bhabam I want to get in this random sequence is going to be of that sublimity, and the associate madhyamam is this. It picks up this waveform. It picks up this movement. That's it. Right? Or this thing like there's so many bhavams you can get. Right? This is one bhavam. The other is di I am confident and strong, and that is the kind of dhira that I want. No frills. So that bhavam is information. Once if you have many bhavams there, you can log. If you have n levels of bhavams, you have log m to base 2 bits. You have associate those bits to this. Figure out which bhavam, which what you want. Therefore, you can get the automaton to do the way you want to do it. You already have that. Which is that robo, right? Humanoid. It makes all the feelings, right? Emotional feelings. It is able to say it. It puts a scowling kind of thing. If it doesn't comprehend, it puts a smiling face. If it is happy, and if you're rude to it, it says no, I don't like it. The David Kootkodi with a smiley face is nice, and Ban Kootkodi. The difference, right? The two bhavs, what they give you, right? You can figure out to code those things and put it into the humanoid, and who says it is not creativity, it is absolutely creativity, right? It is science to it.
Thank you.
Huh? You have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, please. Yeah.
Just a small discussion. So this question is basically from the artistic point of view. Like in traditional concerts, we see minimum virtuosity and maximum somewhat tradition based thing, especially when it comes to instrumental concerts as well. There is a belief that it has to sound gayaki, vocalized. Why can't we add some virtuosity to it? The Western school seems to be highly advanced in terms of technicality, but when we come to our Indian system, like it seems to be slow paced, and so that's what the conservative belief. So how can we come out of it and make it somewhat contemporary?
Good question. I think you asked a very apt question. I think this requires a debate. I think I'll ask my friend Raghu, the station director of Nonlinearity Bengaluru, to have. We have been talking many years from now, And he also is to believe that many musicians are very stereotyped and they should break out of their shells for whatever it is. It may be a bitter pill to consume. So to answer your question, he asked an apt question. It is, but let me admit to you outright, our Carnatic music, even Hindustani music, is a lot of extempore music, virtuosity and spontaneity and creativity that allows in our music, and that's what I love about it. If I got to sing film music, I would be terrible toast because I don't want to be exactly singing what the director wants me to sing in 3 minutes and just whatever it is, even if I get a huge amount of money. But this gives me the scope to do this. I have my ragam rendition. I can render 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Who cares? I can do this, right? And I have my instrument accompanying me to this, right? I have nerval prayogams. I can do this. Swara prastarams. Everywhere I innovate in all these, right? When I take ragam tanam pallavi, throughout it is innovation, right? So there is improvisation. But what musicians, I think, coming to the flip side, the kritis they don't want to adulterate or alter because they see that, like you say, right, how do I put it, Mahalakshmi Sweets Mysore Park versus, I don't know, MTR's Mysore Park or somebody else's Sweets Mysore Park, right? So you want a certain trace of the trait of that Mysore Park or whatever trace of that sweet to be carried on for generations. And if you alter that style, it becomes a little off from the composer's style. So to just preserve that sanctity for the composer, they say, do this. For example, if you're rendering Dikshita's school of music, you have to render it with those namakams. It is absolutely, you can't sing. Or if you sing with, Maharaja's compositions, you will sing it without namakams. Plain swarams you are going to render. So that is basically out of respect to the composer, we stick to it. But within that, you can put your slight tinge to your rendition because that's your bhavam, your connection to Rama, right? Rama, that day I want to connect to Rama. I want to even emphasize the sa. I want to emphasize the re. I would say Rama. Why should somebody stop me from saying that? I don't need to. So that is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You are allowed to do this, and you should be allowed to do this. And somebody who is very close to not willing you not to do this, I think is their closeness. So it's like I don't want to listen to M.N. Vasant Kumari. I only listen to Brinda. The Brinda is fully anuswarams, heavy, rich, gamakam, native music, slow paced. It comes. MLB is slightly brisk paced, madhyamakalam. It comes like this. Who says which is good, which is bad? You figure out the composer, you figure out the kriti, you figure out the style, incorporate everything that you think you can do, right? So I think our music perfectly allows virtuosity throughout. It is much richer than Beethoven, Bach. I know they're brilliant works, Beethoven, Bach, and all that. But at least I would also say that. So though they render Beethoven, Bach compositions exactly the way it is, because here they are allowed ragams, nervals, swarams. Who gives us that kind of thing? So there's free music, so therefore I think we should enjoy the freedom given to us. Okay, and so that's in nutshell. But the composers, in the other way around, to
actually
stick to the part of
uh, with respect to compositions, it's fine, but yes, it's a debate, as you said. Like it's usually like 2.5 octaves. So that is like one side of it. Like, can we stretch it in terms of vocal? So this was like around.
See, for example, beats you told, right? I could not 7 beats per cycle.
Yeah.
It will be sounding very bad if I try it with vocal, right? 4, 5 you can try. 6 is also up speed Krishnada you can try. 7 and all is only good. In instruments you can hear. Or like Adana Kutuhalam and all this, it is much richer to hear on the instrument than in vocal, right? So you should be careful what gels well, and because at the end of the day it should be harmony between all of us who are entering a concert, right? That's the key thing. So I think so that's the take home message. So basically it allows you to bring in virtuosity. At the same time there are some restrictions in kriti renditions that you want to stick to the patantram for whatever it is, but even there are subjectivities. The same Tyagaraja composition there will be variations, few variations. And if you want to sing, of course, this is a little stretching too far, which we might not have tells what singing the same kriti in a different ragam. They do it for Purandadasa's compositions, but if you want to do it for the Trinity, you can dare do it, subject to the comments that you may get from the critics. But why not? If it sounds good, you can try. But it's my opinion. But the old minds have to be slightly be opening up to the fact that this this you could do, they will close their minds. If you sing the Gopala in something else, or let us say like Odi Baraya in Bhairavi, if you sing it in Kalyani, I'm sure you will be stretching yourself with very harsh comments. Not sticking to tradition, this, what not. You get all these comments in the newspaper, and that may be your bread and butter, right? So you have to be careful about it. So that's the reason to be afraid of. Otherwise, if somebody is open, you can listen. Yeah.
ಸುಗಮ ಸಂಗೀತದಲ್ಲಿ
Hmm.
ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಗೀತೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ನೀವು ಆ ಗೀತೆಯಿಂದ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸಾಲ ಸ್ವರ್ಗ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತಾ?
ಅದು ಅನಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅನಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿ ಇದೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ.
ಕಲಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಸಹಾಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಓಕೆ.
ಒಂದು ಗೀತೆ ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಗೀತೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಓದಿತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಯಾವ ಥರ ಹಾಡಬೇಕು.
So this is useful for all that because it extract the pitch trajectory. ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಹೌ ಯು ಲೇಬಲ್ ದ ಷಡ್ಜಮ್ or ಪಂಚಮಂ or ಮಧ್ಯಮಂ or whatever it is. ಸ್ವರಗಳು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸ್ವರಗಳು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. You can do that because I told you right in the Mayamala Goda pitch trajectory somewhere I mentioned. See the pitch trajectory. So you can figure out where from your between two panchamams, the ಷಡ್ಜಮ್ there you can figure out that is your pitch. And from there you can identify the swarams sticking out there and you can do all that.
ಬಹಳ ಸಹಾಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಗಳು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಇನ್ನೂ ಅದು ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರೀಯ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ನಮಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಗಮಕಗಳು ಬರೋವಾಗಲೂ ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನ ಅವಾಗ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ
This will be helpful. I think it's been done from the laboratory, from the research angle. So if it can be further improvised, and we need people who can kind of build this further into technology and stuff, and then if it can be mushrooming a little bit more, I think it can throw open as useful tools for.
ಹೇಳೋದು ಒಂದು ಗೀತೆಗಳು ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡಿ, ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಗೀತೆಗಳು.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಜನ ಬೇಕು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ರೈಟ್ ನಾವು ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎನಿ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಏರಿಯಾ. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಹೂ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ವರ್ಕ್, ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋದಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದೆನ್ ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ತಗೊಂಡು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಗೀತೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಸ್ವರಗಳು ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡೋದಾಗಿತ್ತು.
ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ. ಇನ್ ದ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ದ ಪಿಚ್, ರೈಟ್? ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಹಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಡಿ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಸಿ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಸಿ ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಅಥವಾ ತಂಬೂರಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆಯಾ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ. ಪಿಚ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಫಸ್ಟ್. ಪಿಚ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಬೇಸ್ ಷಡ್ಜ ಗೊತ್ತಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು ಸ್ವರಗಳನ್ನ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಯಾವುದು? This is fully automated. This is a synthesizer. ನೀವು ರಾಗ ಕೊಡ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಲೇ ಇಟ್ ಬೈ ಇಟ್ಸೆಲ್ಫ್. ನೀವು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಭಾವಗೀತೆಗಳನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ಗೆ ಇದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಪಿಚ್ ಟ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟರಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ, which has to be which you can do. We have all the tools which are automated. Okay, adana it has to be packaged, that is stitch all the tools together that you can kind of weave it out. It's not like ready right now plug and play that it spits out everything for you. For the synthesizer, we know it spits out these forums. We have that automated. So what is asking is the analysis stage from the software. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಟೂಲ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ನಮಗೆ, ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಪ್ಯಾಕೇಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ then you can synthesize it.
ನನಗೇನೋ ಈಗ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಹಾಡಗಲ್ಲಿ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರೀಯ ಇದೆ. ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಷಣಕ್ಕೆ ಇವಾಗ ಹಾಡುಗಳು ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆದರೆ ಸ್ವರಗಳು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ವರಗಳು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋವಾಗಲೂ ಯಾರು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಹಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಅದೇ ಥರ ನಾವು ಹಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಸ್ವರಗಳ this tool is able to do the analysis. ಸ್ವರಗಳು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಪಿಚ್ ಟ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟರಿ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಷಡ್ಜಲಿಗೆ ಪಂಚಮಗಳಿಗೆ ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಅದನ್ನ ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು then you will identify this with the template and you can correlate and you can get the So now ಅದು ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ, we have been pure about it. Of course, film song ಅಲ್ಲಿ mixture ಇರುತ್ತೆ. But in principle, theoretically one can do it. Not theoretically, practically also you can do it. But I have not attempted that.
All this is developed about a couple of decades.
No, we started in Tutsi. Actually, 2013 we started, and I had nobody in my group, so I had he's a project assistant. So when he developed some